In 1974, good times made the Evans family feel like our own. But behind the smiles, their real lives were anything but comforting. Broken marriages, behind-the-scenes trauma, and sudden, heartbreaking deaths followed many of them. And once you uncover what really happened, you'll realize just how much that success truly cost. Esther Rolle as Florida Evans. Esther Rolle was born on November 8, 1920, in Pompano Beach, Florida. At 54 years old, she played Florida Evans, the firm, principled mother, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. Her calm authority became the emotional spine of the series, preventing it from collapsing into caricature and giving the Evans family moral weight. That same emotional seriousness followed her into marriage. Esther Rolle married Oscar Robinson in 1955, but the relationship slowly unraveled and ended in divorce in 1975, leaving her without children and increasingly alone. This private absence directly fueled her confrontations with producers when she felt the show betrayed the dignity she believed Florida Evans represented. Those battles did not stop her career, but they drained her. Even as she earned critical respect for performances in Roots and Driving Miss Daisy, the strain of constantly defending her values took a physical toll. By the early 1990s, long-term diabetes led to kidney failure, dialysis, and eventually partial leg amputation, forcing her to retreat from public life as survival replaced ambition. Finally, Esther Rolle died on November 17, 1998, at age 78, from complications of diabetes, 9 days after her birthday. Her funeral was held at Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Pompano Beach, and she was buried at Westview Community Cemetery, a historic African-American burial ground. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was around $3 million, modest compared to the lasting cultural weight of the mother she embodied. Jeanette DuBois as Willona Woods. Jeanette DuBois was born on August 5, 1932, in Brooklyn, New York. At 42 years old, she played Willona Woods, the outspoken, stylish neighbor, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. Her wit and warmth expanded the show's emotional range, turning a supporting role into a cultural standout. Behind that confidence was a complicated private life. DuBois married Sajit Gupta and had 4 children, but the marriage ended in divorce, leaving her to raise her family largely on her own. The deepest wound came in 1987, when her son Raj Christo Gupta died of cancer at age 36, a loss that permanently altered her emotional world and reshaped her priorities. Even while grieving, her career remained wide-ranging. She composed and sang the iconic theme "Movin' On Up" for the Jeffersons, and later appeared in projects like the PJs, while also building a parallel life as a voice actress, activist, and co-founder of the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. Balancing creative work, advocacy, and motherhood placed constant strain on her health. Sadly, Jeanette DuBois died on February 17, 2020, at age 74, from cardiac arrest at her home in Glendale, California. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was about $2 million, reflecting a life spent creating, supporting, and enduring far beyond the spotlight. John Amos as James Evans, Sr. John Amos was born on December 27, 1939, in Newark, New Jersey. At 35 years old, he played James Evans Sr., the disciplined, laboring father, in Good Times, 1974 to 1976. His physical presence and restrained intensity grounded the show, giving its social message credibility rather than sentimentality. That insistence on seriousness soon echoed in his personal life. Amos married artist Noel Mickelson in 1965, had 2 children, and divorced in 1975 as career pressure and prolonged absences eroded the marriage. A later marriage to actress Lillian Lehman also collapsed quickly. These early fractures hardened into long-term family tension that never fully healed. Professionally, he rebounded with powerful work in Roots and later reached mainstream audiences again through Coming to America. Yet stability remained elusive. As diabetes progressed into congestive heart failure, his health declined alongside mounting emotional stress. Sadly, John Amos died on August 21, 2024, at age 84 from congestive heart failure at Centinela Hospital in California. His death was revealed weeks later, and his body was cremated 9 days after passing. He left behind an estimated net worth of $3 million, closing the life of a man whose on-screen strength concealed a deeply unsettled private ending. Janet Jackson as Penny Gordon Woods. Janet Jackson was born on May 16, 1966, in Gary, Indiana. At 11 years old, she played Penny Gordon Woods, the abused child later taken in by the Evans family, in Good Times, 1977. Her quiet intensity added a rare emotional gravity to the series, confronting audiences with the reality of child abuse. That early exposure echoed her private struggles. Raised under strict control within the famous Jackson family, Janet later spoke of emotional suppression and fear that followed her into adulthood. Her marriages, to James DuBois, Renee Elizondo Jr., and Wissam Almana, each ended painfully, marked by secrecy, control, and public scrutiny, even as she became a mother later in life. While acting receded, her music career surged. Albums like Control and Rhythm Nation 1814 transformed her into a global icon, yet success came with pressure that peaked after the 2004 Super Bowl incident, triggering industry backlash and emotional strain. Despite accolades and influence, her personal stability remained fragile. Today, Janet Jackson is 60 years old and continues to perform selectively while prioritizing motherhood and legacy projects. Her estimated net worth stands at approximately $180 million, built through decades of music, touring, and branding. Jimmie Walker as J.J. Evans. Jimmie Walker was born on June 25, 1947, in Brooklyn, New York. At 27 years old, he played J.J. Evans, the flamboyant eldest son and aspiring artist, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. His catchphrase, "Dynamite," became a cultural phenomenon, pushing the show into mainstream popularity while reshaping its comedic identity. That fame, however, complicated his professional relationships. Walker's portrayal of J.J. drew criticism for reinforcing stereotypes, creating lasting tension with co-stars Esther Rolle and John Amos, who feared the show's message was being diluted. While he leveraged the exposure into stand-up comedy success and a memorable role in Airplane, 1980, the post-Good Times years brought fewer acting opportunities and uneven financial stability. Away from the spotlight, Walker's personal life grew increasingly solitary. He never married and never had children, later admitting that professional success could not replace the absence of family or long-term emotional bonds. Today, Jimmie Walker is 79 years old and continues to perform stand-up comedy selectively while living off royalties and touring appearances. His estimated net worth stands at around $10 million, largely sustained by residuals and live performances. Bern Nadette Stanis as Thelma Evans. Bern Nadette Stanis was born on December 22, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. At 21 years old, she played Thelma Evans, the loyal romantic daughter of the Evans family, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. Her warmth and vulnerability balanced the show's humor, offering a softer emotional counterpoint to its social struggles. When the series ended, that same visibility became a barrier. Stanis appeared in shows like The Love Boat and later wrote several books exploring relationships and identity, yet she struggled to escape the lasting shadow of Thelma. The limited range of roles offered to her created professional frustration and forced her to seek purpose beyond acting alone. Her private life proved just as turbulent. Stanis married Terrence Redd in the early 1980s and had a daughter, but the marriage collapsed under the strain of fame and instability. A later marriage to Kevin Fontana brought greater endurance and 2 children, yet the emotional scars of earlier relationships shaped her guarded approach to love and independence. Now, Bern Nadette Stanis is 73 years old and lives in Atlanta, where she remains active as an author, speaker, and advocate for financial and emotional empowerment. Her estimated net worth is around $3 million, drawn from acting, book sales, and public speaking. Ralph Carter as Michael Evans. Ralph Carter was born on May 30, 1961 in New York City. At 13 years old, he played Michael Evans, the sharp, politically conscious youngest son, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. His intelligence and moral clarity gave the series its conscience, often challenging both authority and complacency inside the Evans household. That early responsibility carried into his personal life. Carter's first marriage to Lisa Parks ended in 1992, strained by the long shadow of childhood fame and the pressure to provide stability too young. In 1994, he married River York, and together they raised 5 children, a structure that finally gave him the grounded family life missing during his teenage rise to fame. Professionally, he found success early, but struggled to sustain momentum. Beyond Good Times, Carter earned critical recognition with a Tony nomination for Raisin and released the album When You're Young and in Love. Yet the transition from child star to adult performer narrowed his opportunities. As acting slowed, he shifted toward music and live performance, navigating intermittent income and quieter years outside the spotlight. Now, Ralph Carter is 65 years old and lives largely out of public view, occasionally appearing at reunions and industry events. His estimated net worth is around $1 million, drawn from past acting, music royalties, and live performances. Ben Powers as Keith Anderson. Ben Powers was born on July 5, 1950, in Brooklyn, New York. At 28 years old, he played Keith Anderson, Thelma Evans' husband and a professional football player, in Good Times, 1978. His arrival in the final season symbolized Thelma's transition into adulthood and briefly shifted the show's focus toward marriage and responsibility. That screen stability contrasted with a life shaped by early disruption. Powers grew up amid poverty and family separation, learning independence early and carrying that pressure into adulthood. He married Julia Harper in 1981, and together they raised 4 children. The marriage remained largely steady, yet the burden of providing while navigating an uncertain career weighed heavily on him. Professionally, he moved between promise and frustration. After Laugh-In and supporting roles in films like Things Are Tough All Over, he became a regular on Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer, but Hollywood momentum stalled when the series collapsed. By 1985, disillusionment pushed him away from the industry, leading him back to stage work with Trinity Repertory Theater and a quieter creative life. Tragically, Ben Powers died on April 6, 2015, at age 64, from advanced liver cancer in Massachusetts, and was later cremated. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was around $500,000, reflecting a career that ended far from the spotlight, but anchored by family and stagecraft. Johnny Brown as Nathan Bookman. Johnny Brown was born on June 11, 1937, in St. Petersburg, Florida. At 37 years old, he played Nathan Bookman, the fast-talking, comic-building superintendent, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. His exaggerated humor injected levity into the series, turning a minor role into a recognizable comic fixture. That visibility, however, mirrored a lifetime shaped by survival. Brown grew up in a working-class black family under economic pressure and racial barriers, forcing him to leave school early to earn money. He later built a long marriage with June Russell, lasting more than 6 decades and producing 2 children, a rare stability that became the emotional anchor of his adult life. Professionally, he was widely employed but narrowly cast. Alongside Good Times, Brown gained exposure on Laugh-In and appeared on Broadway in The Wiz, yet the industry repeatedly confined him to comedic side roles. Sadly, Johnny Brown died on March 2, 2022, at age 84, after collapsing following a medical appointment related to heart complications and a pacemaker procedure. He passed away in Los Angeles. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was about $1 million, reflecting a long working life built on consistency rather than stardom. Teddy Wilson as Sweet Daddy Williams. Teddy Wilson was born on December 10, 1943, in Harlem, New York. At 33 years old, he played Sweet Daddy Williams, a flashy street hustler, in Good Times, 1976. His swagger brought a sharp edge to the series, embodying the temptations and dangers surrounding the Evans family's world. That persona was forged early in real life. Raised amid Harlem's street violence and poverty, Wilson learned to navigate danger long before fame arrived. He married actress Joan Pringle and became a father to 3 children. But financial pressure and unstable work strained the marriage, turning domestic life into another arena of stress rather than refuge. Career-wise, Wilson worked steadily, yet never securely. Appearances on shows like The Golden Girls and Family Matters kept him visible, but the abrupt cancellation of Sanford Arms deepened his professional disappointment. Behind the scenes, long-standing heart disease required open-heart surgery, leaving his body weakened even as he continued working. Finally, Teddy Wilson died on July 21, 1991, at age 47, from complications of a stroke at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. His passing came years after major heart surgery, cutting short a life already under physical strain. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was about $500,000, closing the story of a performer whose energy outpaced the opportunities he was given. Helen Martin as Wanda. Helen Martin was born on July 23, 1909, in St. Louis, Missouri. At 65 years old, she played Wanda, the perpetually tearful neighbor, in Good Times, 1974 to 1979. Her presence added a melancholic humor that softened the show's harsh realities and made Wanda instantly memorable despite limited screen time. That fragility on screen echoed a life shaped by endurance. Growing up during the Great Depression amid racial barriers, Martin worked from a young age without a stable support system and never married or had children. As the years passed, independence hardened into isolation, and the absence of family became a quiet constant rather than a passing phase. Professionally, she built longevity rather than momentum. From early Broadway work such as Native Son to later television success on 227, Martin often found opportunities narrowing as she aged, with major roles slipping away in favor of brief character appearances. Even so, her late career visibility proved that persistence could outlast fashion and youth. Sadly, Helen Martin died on March 25, 2000, at age 90, from a heart attack in Monterey, California. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was about $1 million, accumulated through decades of steady work rather than headline stardom. Moses Gunn as Carl Dixon. Moses Gunn was born on October 2, 1929, in St. Louis, Missouri. At 48 years old, he played Carl Dixon, Florida Evans' later husband, in Good Times, 1977. His arrival introduced a more mature, complicated dynamic into Florida's life, briefly shifting the series toward themes of second chances and belief. That gravitas was earned through adversity. Gunn battled severe asthma from childhood, a condition that shaped both his mobility and discipline, while frequent family upheaval forced early independence. He later married Gwendolyn Moma Landes, becoming a stepfather and eventually raising 2 children, finding stability even as illness remained a constant threat. His career balanced prestige and persistence. Gunn gained major recognition through Shaft and an Emmy-nominated performance in Roots, while his stage work earned Obie Awards and critical respect. Yet the physical toll of asthma limited his workload, forcing him to pace ambition against survival as the years progressed. Sadly, Moses Gunn died on December 16, 1993, at age 64, from complications related to asthma in Guilford, Connecticut. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was approximately $1.5 million, reflecting a career built on artistic integrity despite chronic illness. Louis Gossett Jr. as Uncle Wilbert. Louis Gossett Jr. was born on May 27, 1936, in Brooklyn, New York. At 43 years old, he played Uncle Wilbert in Good Times, 1979. Though brief, the role carried quiet authority, reinforcing the show's themes of family legacy and moral responsibility. That authority was forged through pain. Gossett endured severe racial trauma in his youth, including a documented incident in which he was handcuffed to a tree by police, an experience that left lasting psychological scars. His adult life reflected that turbulence. 3 marriages ended in divorce, struggles with alcohol and cocaine during the 1980s, and fractured family stability even as he raised 2 sons. Professionally, his resilience translated into history. He achieved global recognition through Roots and redefined Hollywood standards by winning the Academy Award for An Officer and a Gentleman, becoming the first Black actor to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Yet the pressure of fame coincided with prolonged illness, including toxic mold exposure, prostate cancer, and later chronic respiratory disease. Finally, Louis Gossett Jr. died on March 29, 2024, at age 87, at a rehabilitation center in Santa Monica from COPD, with heart failure as a contributing factor. At the time he passed, his estimated net worth was around $10 million, closing the life of a man whose success came at immense personal and physical cost. More than 4 decades later, Good Times is no longer just a sitcom. It's a time capsule of struggle, laughter, and lives forever changed by fame. So which cast member's journey surprised or moved you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more classic TV stories, because these lives deserve to be remembered.